Okay, people. So today I am joined by Thao Lam, who is the co-writer and director of a new wonderful short called Boat People. So, Tao, thank you so much for, giving me your time today. I really appreciate that. How are
Uh,
you doing?
I appreciate like you're willing to have a conversation with me, and I'm doing awesome.
Awesome. Well, when people produce such compelling work like you have, you just want to have conversations, right? That it's always a tough thing about a festival because you come out of something and a lot of times you just like, I want to have a conversation with the directors and the writers and the cast to find out how this came together, right?
Mhm.
How did they come up with that concept? It's so crazy. So getting this kind of opportunity, it's great. It's fantastic. So I have to say a big thanks to Nadine for hooking it up because it's much appreciated. But I believe, right, that Boat People is actually based on a book you wrote called Paper Boat.
Yeah. So originally, I had a story idea about the ants and my family's journey to Canada from Vietnam, and I always wanted it for me when I the concept came to my head. It was always meant to be told in motion because like refugees escaping and people leaving, even people leaving by boats, and even the concept of ants moving, and so it's all motion. Like so, it's one big journey from beginning to end, right? And to fully capture that journey, I saw it in motion. So I really wanted to do a film.
Mm.
And making a film is very hard, and getting a grant or money for the film, it's even harder. And so it took a while for Cal and I to get funding. And we went, I think we spent a year trying to get funding for it. And we were very lucky that when we pitched it to the National Film Board of Canada, that they saw something in it and saw the potential in it, and was not scared that I've never made a film before, and was willing to take me on. And so, um, yeah, I've always wanted it to be a movie, but because it took a year to find funding, my publisher, because I write children's books, that's my main occupation. So they said, "Oh well, what about doing a book about it?" And so I jumped at it because it was, I didn't know if I would have a chance to tell this story otherwise. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll do a book. And when we signed up for the book, because like shortly after, we signed up with the NFB to make a film. So I got the best of both worlds, and it was very interesting. If I don't know if you had a chance to see the Paper Boat published by Owl Kids Books, it's very different. The look of it is similar because we were using my art style, but I feel like Boat People is way heavier, and it dives really deeply into my family and like the emotional aspects of how members of a family can can view a tragedy. Like if you've seen the film, like my dad just shut down and my mom like persevered, and so everybody had a different came out with different scars and
Mm.
baggage from it. So yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, I unfortunately I haven't had a chance to look at the book.
Mhm.
Yeah, which I'm fascinated. Like, what approach did you take with the book? Is it like a graphic novel, or is it like an illustrated like children's book kind of approach? did you do?
It's an illustrated children's book. Because my audience, the difference between film and book writing, my audience is actually like 3 to 12, 3 to 9. And so making a film, it's a different audience. Like when I started doing this, my producers were like, think of 18 to 35. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a different age group for me. I'm very used to talking to people who are shorter than me. So it was a learning experience. And with the picture book, I did it wordless because I wanted, I like my go-to every time when I write a story is always a wordless picture book. But this one especially because I didn't want to dive into like the history and like add words to it that would take away from the actual story of it or the emotional part of it. And I also intentionally made it wordless because we're talking about refugees, and with refugees, when they're in a new country, they don't speak the language and they can't read, right? And so I really wanted kids that were coming to a new country to be able to pick up this book and read it and say, oh, wow, I totally know this story. I don't feel left out. I don't feel out of place. And I can relate to this story because this is very similar to my story. And the best thing that came out of this, making it a wordless picture book, is that there's a library in Italy, a very small library that has these wordless picture books. And it was built there. I don't remember. I think it was on an island. And it was built there because they were getting an influx of refugees coming, and the community wanted to give kids and the adults there like books to read so that they can, distract themselves from their current situation. So there's a collection of wordless picture books there from all over the world, and the paper boat is in it, and which is lovely because it did exactly what I was hoping it would do, is to get it into the hands of a child that has experienced a similar experience as myself. So moving on to the film, when I pitched the film, I also pitched it wordless. But my producers were like, why don't you try your hands at writing it? And so that took a while too. Like a lot of different screenplays were written for it. I must have did 50 different versions of it. And each time it was just really difficult. It's like, I'm not very great with words and writing. And so it was definitely a challenge to write it.
Well, I think you nailed it.
Oh, thank you.
I really do, and it's interesting because that was the intention, was to give voiceless people a voice, right? And I think that's what it's done, because as you said, like, people go to a different country and they often do not speak the language, but also they have no rights, right? So you can't vote, so you don't have a voice in that respect either. So oftentimes you're not legal,
Right.
so it's just not being able to express that experience. And so you have created this which really does tell that story in such a compelling way, and I think you narrating it as well just gives it so much more power. So, like, what was that decision, right? when you thought about, okay, the producer's like, no, Thao, we gotta add words. You're like, God damn it. No, right? So you finally after all those attempts, you've settled on a script, and then they're like, you should be like, no, let's find someone else. So they're like, nope, you're gonna read it. Like, what was that?
Well, I've never really liked the sound of my voice, and I'm not. I feel like I sound too much like a kid, and nobody would take me seriously. And so when I was under the assumption that I was just filling in until we found the right person.
They tricked you.
And they kept doing recording after recording, and I'm like, I don't know, when's this next person? Like, when's George Clooney signing up? Like, how's this gonna work? Right? And but I don't know, like the feedback I've been getting from everybody who's seen the film and the members of the team, and they're just like, this works. Like it makes so much sense that you do it, and there's something that comes through it, because I'm not an actor or a voice actor, and so I was just reading it, but from my understanding, that sometimes everything you've experienced, no matter, even if you're saying you're not an actor, it still somehow comes out, right? Like if you're talking about something that is very dear and deep to your heart, then it does come out. There's no way you just sound like a flat line, right? And no matter, even if it's a subtle thing. And I feel like there were moments in which I was doing the narration where I, especially the moment where my dad like said you, right? Like that, like forever will just hit me in the gut, because it is one thing that, and from the very beginning, when we were doing research for this film, and me interviewing my family members, that was the one thing that really left an impression on me. And so it is a question I did ask him, and that was exactly the answer he gave me, and that left an impression. So every time I read that part of the narration, like I just hold that moment in which we had that interview over the phone, and I channeled that. And when the actors just say, well, how do you cry? And they're like, I just think of the saddest moment in my life. And I'm like, oh, I totally get it now, because I'm just gonna think of that moment with my dad every time that line comes across.
Yeah, but the difference is you had the actual experience, right? And I think the power of you reading it, so you understand the emotional impact of the words. So you know when to pause, the inflection to use, where if it's someone else, they could just be, and ants, they travel and they walk, and sometimes they move like this, the
Right.
ant travels down the road, and it's a totally different thing.
Right.
It invokes a different emotion,
Right.
how you read it. And so, yeah. And also, you need someone, who has actually experienced that, right? So then other people from that place who experience it go, she sounds like us, right? She knows what we've experienced. Like, I feel that emotion, right? And so it works where, if I read it for you, I mean, I do a great job, trust me. You know what I mean? But I haven't experienced that.
Right.
So it's going to be different. And it's emotional, but the emotion will be different and be felt in different places, which might be the wrong places, not the wrong places, but for someone that has gone through that experience, the emotion might not be in the same places which will hit them,
Right. And I think what you're saying is absolutely true, because there's been a huge push in the last couple of years for like sincerity and authenticity in storytelling, right? Whether it's in book or in film, like that we want to give those who have experienced it an opportunity to tell their own story. And so that's kind of one of the things that when I was researching about refugees and boat people, was being able to read everybody's story. I mean, they all went through the same journey, but everybody's experience was different. And I think what I realized after making this film was that even though it's a story that we've heard many times in many different ways, it's still important that everybody has an opportunity to say it, right? And to share it. And just to give us like, so that we all know this is still happening, right? Like if
Mm,
we're not talking about it, then people just assume, oh, there's peace in other countries. We're living in a
mm,
peaceful time, but it's
yeah.
not true, right? So like I really, if anything came out of this film, like I hope that it would give other people an opportunity to tell their story and just say, yeah, my family went through the same thing, but it's different because this is how it happened to my family. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a thing, right? And I do think it's all about the voice,
Right.
right? So if you were to write something, but you just don't have the right voice to
Mm,
narrate, then fine, get someone else.
yes. Yeah.
But if your voice works, then your voice works, and you should be able to narrate it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, there's not many new stories out there,
Hmm.
really. Like we've different people, might be in different places, but they could have very similar life experiences. But the difference is everyone's experience is slightly different.
Hmm.
Like if you look at racism,
Right.
everyone experiences it in a different way. Like
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with a friend, and I'm just like, yo, man, like every time I left my house growing up, there
Hmm.
would just be crazy racism, and I was like, yo, how did you handle that? And she was just like, oh, that didn't happen to me.
Oh.
Right. And she had racism in different areas of her life,
Right.
but it's different. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So like, although we've experienced racism, it's in different ways. So
Yeah.
that's two different stories.
Yes.
And people's migration story
Hmm.
can be so different.
Right.
Yeah, and there definitely like different places in the world where you live.
Hmm.
We heard people migrating from like Mexico,
Hmm. That's right.
and that's a different thing,
Yeah.
right? Just all of these different experiences. So it's you should never try and shut the door on someone telling their story, because
Correct.
although you've heard a similar story, you haven't heard it from them. You
Yeah.
haven't heard their point of view and the emotional impact it's had on their life.
Yes. That's very true. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, and the big thing with yours, I've never heard the whole, migration story told with the metaphor of ants. Yo, where did that, because it's genius. But it's like if you were to shut your eyes, you
Right.
would honestly think this was a documentary about ants.
Yeah. well, well, the original story was the story of my mom who saved ants when she was a little girl. Like she just, there was no TV, not toys, because it was just the end of the war. And so she would just sit there and she would just like scoop these ants out of the bowl and she would put them on the table. And she would just do that. And that was what she considered like fun or meditative. And so when we were running, escaping, and we got lost, she followed the trail of ants, and it led her to the water side. So that whole story was always part of my childhood. And when I was writing this concept, I wanted to incorporate obviously the ants because it was part of the story, but like it took a couple of writings and a lot of research, and I like to do research before any project just because it's my method of procrastinating. So I did a deep dive on ants, read a lot of science books on it, lots of articles. I watched a lot of David Attenborough.
Hmm.
I would love for him to come see the screening of this film so that he can tell me if I did him proud or not. Um, but
Hey,
yeah,
you should definitely send a copy to him.
a coffee too.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody out there knows David Attenborough, let me know. um, yeah, and even when I was doing the narration for the ant part, I like tried to like channel David Attenborough, and so it was really fascinating. So the more I learned about ants, the more I saw the similarities in ants and people, and especially like looking at the images of ants. What really hit home for me was the image of ants. When there's a flood, ants like hold on to each other and they're floating, so they look like this mass, like big brown piece of something that's like on water. When you look closely, it's like thousands of ants just kind of like holding on to each other. And they can float like that for like days, right? So when I looked at that, and then I was doing research for uh, boat people, there were a lot of black and white photos where they showed thousands, like not thousands, that's hundreds of people like on these little boats or big shipping boats, like
Mm.
and they were bodies were just all mingled together, like you can't even tell who's who, like. And I looked at those two images side by side and I'm like, wow, like that's similarity right there, right? Like that really hit home. And I was like, okay, so with the help of like the producers and my co-director and co-writer Cal, we like it took this journey, like chipping away to figure out exactly how to tell the story in a way in which um, is made sense between the original story of my mom and the ants to like the science of ants and the nature of ants compared to the nature of people when they're forced to abandon their homes and start over. So it's to me it makes so much sense, and I'm like, why didn't I see this sooner? Why did it take me 4 years to write this? Right? So but it is. I would totally recommend to anybody like look at a picture of a floating body of ants and look at a picture of like refugees on a ship and not be able to make that comparison is it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I did not know that. I've watched a good few documentaries about ants, but I did not know the water thing.
Yeah.
That I've just thought that is fascinating.
Hmm, hmm.
But I think when people hear, you know, someone migrated on a boat,
Right.
I think a lot of times they think something like a ferry, like a big boat,
A
right?
yacht.
Yeah, I don't think everyone just imagines it's a small, it could be a canoe, a
Mm,
kayak, just this small boat
yeah,
that if a big wave comes, it
right.
could be over,
Yeah.
right? And that you cram, and a lot of times, so many people are crammed on the boat that it
Mm,
is so low in the water,
yes.
which is a problem,
Right.
and then you just hear some of the horrific stories that happen
Hmm.
with people on those boats,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's yeah, it's just these crazy things. So I think we need stories like this to just highlight those things.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
by creating it in this way, it means a younger audience can access it as well. Because I think these kind of things, they're hard. It's not happy stories necessarily, but they're important stories. So
Right.
young people definitely should have an understanding of this kind of thing. Because, I think people that go through this can be very stoic,
Mm,
right? Your parents don't want to talk about this kind of
mm.
stuff. It's just like, yo, how did you get it? Oh, we just came,
Yes.
and that could be
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? And it could take ages to actually find out, wait, you just came, and you just think, oh, did they get on a plane? Did they, and then you find out, no, they got on a small boat.
Right.
And,
Right.
and so, if a little kid or an adolescent
Right.
understands,
Right.
then I think the way they communicate and approach their parents will be completely different.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. It's sort of like um a lot of the people that came over were children. A lot of the children were handed over. Their parents just handed over because there was no spot
Mm,
on the boat. So these kids grew up uh, like very young, like 5 and under, would grow up and not have memories of being on a boat, or didn't understand the sacrifice that their parents made in order for them to reach to go to a safer place. And so it, I'm hoping that, and also because I write children's books, for me, I'm always thinking of what an audience, a younger audience, how they would take it. How would I explain it? And because I also have a daughter, how would I explain it to her? I'm always trying to make, if I can make a kid understand, then I can make an adult understand, right? Because
yes.
kids are a bit tougher to, in a way, I don't know. They adults and kids have like different criterias, but my goal is always to make sure a kid understands. Um, and so I feel like, and I've heard this from people who've also looked at the book, and they're just like, there's war is a hard subject to tackle, and and refugees is a hard subject to tackle, and all of us know the history of Vietnam, so we don't really need to talk. We know enough about the history of Vietnam that we know not to. We don't need to like regurgitate it, like and uh, so it's, I don't know. It was important that we find a different way to tell this, because
Mm,
and in a way in which people can understand, right? Like whether they are young or older, or people who have the privilege of being born many generations in North America and have never experienced the feeling of fear, or and having to leave their homes or countries, that they also understand like the basics of this. We're talking about the human instinct, like nature, the natural instinct to protect your family. Like that's where we're getting down to. Like, so I don't know. Did I just go off on a rant? I thought I had a
no, 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 no. This
still going off on a rant.
no. It's all interesting, information to add to the tapestry of what this is. So no, it's all vital stuff, and you could take so much from it. So yeah, no, always feel free to just talk. Like, what was the impact on you, like, doing this, and just, knowing some of the story, but as more and more is divulged to you, right? What was that like?
Well, I think like learning about, I've always like asked my parents like how we got here, why we left, and you get bits and pieces or not the full picture, and then a lot of it I learned on like 60 minutes. So it was very I think it was a not, I don't want to say privilege is the right word, but I was in a spot where I had the resources and the time to dive into this, to finally dive into this, to learn everything I could on the subject of Vietnam, or on the subject of refugees. And the more I read on it, although obviously the more heartache, and like you think the world is just going to hell. So, but in a way, it was also very uplifting to know that even through everything, people still pulled together, or people survived, or people came over with nothing and was able to start over and build something. And generations after like have grown up and had like made a life for themselves. So that part was very like it made you feel good about humanity. Or even just the stories of communities pitching together or raising money to sponsor a family over. it just makes you feel like, it's not hopeless, right? It sucks, but it's not hopeless. And so I feel like I'm very lucky to have this opportunity to learn more. But I've also been very lucky to have this opportunity to share my story, right? Like, not a lot of people get a chance to do that, mostly on an international level, right? And so I want to make sure that whatever this opportunity I'm given, that it is a starting point for other people to have a conversation too. Like, I walked away from this project going, this can't be it. Like, I need to make this work on a bigger scale, in which, like, I want to give other people an opportunity to tell a story. So I'm kind of working on a project right now that I can't talk about, but the goal is to give other people an opportunity to share their story. And it's not like, I don't want them to just listen to mine only, right? There are many other over history. There's been many families that have fled, and currently there are people who are trying to find a better place to raise their family.
Yeah. Is the new project a book or another film?
It's I guess I can say it's an exhibit.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, so that's what I can say about it.
All right. Interesting.
I don't want to say anything, because if I can't make it happen, then you'll be like, Tao told me she was going to do something and she's not
No. We'll be patient. We'll be patient on it. Don't worry. How did you form the partnership with
Cal?
Keel?
Yeah, Cal. We have both two very challenging names.
I know, it's so difficult. I'm so bad with names.
No. Cal did the trailer for my first children's book. So it was Skunk and the String. And so that was a really, I think that partnership, or that trailer the making of that trailer went really smoothly. And so when I was thinking of looking for an animator to handle this project, his name was the first one that popped in my head. And it's been good. We have an understanding. We've known each other for, this project is 4 years. So 4 years. So yeah, it's also nice to have a partner. And so, because I've never done film before, and it's nice to have a partner who has the experience. And also, like, because the film took 4 years, there was a lot of times where I had meltdowns. I was just like, what am I doing? And he was there. He was there for all of it. He was there through my ugly crying to my, like, yes, we did it, high five. So yeah, no, I couldn't have found a better partner for this film. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. And how did you find the collaborative work? How did you kind of bounce ideas off each other, or, work on what style to tell the story?
That was a very explorative, it was a lot of give and take, right? I obviously I relied on him a lot for experience and knowledge, and then creatively, like, we would bounce ideas off of each other, and sometimes we'd be like, very rarely, I think, I can't remember, I might have just like blacked out like on the bad parts, but I don't remember us butting heads often, right? Like we knew there was a story to tell, and we kind of we explored it together. So basically it wasn't like, oh no, I know exactly how the story is going to be told, I know exactly where we're going. A lot of the times I'm just like, I don't know where we're going, Cal. Do you know where you're going? And he'll be like, I don't know where I'm going either. So together we just explored. And that was what was really lovely about working with the NFB. It was that they gave us room to explore and there was no pressure. And often when you have room to explore, you can throw out a lot of ideas, but you also do throw out a lot of ideas, right?
Mm.
So there wasn't any like nobody just, yeah, it was just the freedom to explore and not be judged on it. And the only thing we were judged on is whether it made sense for the storyline. Like, okay, no, clowns do not work with the storyline. So go back to the drawing board, like, that sort of situation. But overall, I like, we're doing another project together, and that wasn't even something I second guessed. I was just like, hey, you want to do another project? Yeah, great. Like, he didn't say, like, he didn't have to stop to think, let me think about this and get back to you. But he was on board too. So I think we got along.
Ah, nice. Yeah, no, that's great. Like, there's used several different animation styles with this. So, where did that idea come from?
mm, you mean the technical aspect of like making it look like a collage?
Well, yeah, because there's like 2D, there's 3D, just all of those different kind of elements happening.
Right. As much as I've spent time with Cal, I don't know the answer to that. That would probably be best to ask him because uh, the other great thing about our partnership is we know what our skills, our strengths are, and mine is definitely not anything technical. And so I just sort of like, here you go, have fun. I'm not gonna try to do a like I'm the boss here on that.
Uh, so has your daughter watched the film?
Yes, she has. She's been, because this film was made over COVID, she's always been in the background watching and making comments and stuff like that. But about 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege of bringing her along to the Ottawa International Animation Festival, and that was and she saw it on big screen. And so that was really something to let her see it. She still thinks she calls it, Mama made a very long commercial. And I'm like, thanks for dumbing down my art form. It's like, yeah, got it.
Oh man.
So she was, I think it's weird because she grows up knowing that I write children's books also. So once in a while, she's like, she shows it to her friends and talks about my books to her teacher. But other than that, like, there's no, she's like, oh, this is what she does. It's at home all the time. Art's all over the house all the time. Yeah.
And how about your parents?
Okay. My parents. I haven't told my parents. It's like a therapy session here. No, I haven't told my parents. I know I get asked this question a lot, and obviously from the film you would understand that the dynamics between my parents and I are complicated. And I'm not saying that they would be like embarrassed or anything. It's just, as an artist, like, I don't even tell them about my books. As an artist, it's very personal. What you do is very personal, right? And so my parents has this tendency to, I'm not sure this is the right terminology, but poo-poo on my art.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so I'm very fragile, an artist. So I can have a meltdown easily, and so I don't want to show it to them. I'm not strong enough to show it to them. I guess that it comes down to that.
Okay. No, I do get that. Because if like I've had a few conversations with my parents
Right.
about, the podcast, and
Right.
it's like, so you talk to people. Like, why would people want to hear that? And
Right.
like, okay,
Yes.
it's a little bit more than just talking to people,
Yeah.
it's the
Yes.
in-depth conversations. Yeah, but they don't get it. They do not get it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I I understand completely.
Okay. Not everybody's family is perfect, and
Hmm.
that is something that I over the years have tried to accept, because often you look at other families and you're like, oh man, I really wish my family was like their family, and it's just, and then we circle back around to refugees, right? Not every family is built the same. Not every family goes through the same journey, and some of these journeys bring families together, and some of these journeys tear families apart, and so or the family just goes numb. So there's no there's no place for judgment, right? Each to their own. Um, and it took me a while to learn that, because a lot of time I'm family envy, right? I'm like, oh my god, like my cousin's family went through the same journey as ours, but look how like strong they are. They're like, we could die any moment, and therefore we need to be a very strong family. And my family's like, yeah, we survived. We survived the sea. All right, let's just like, part goodbye.
Mm.
So it's different.
Yeah, it's all very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
But people have seen this.
Hmm.
So what has that been like? It being out in the world and the response that you've gotten.
I think for me, and I'm very used to getting feedback, like, because writing children's books, you often get feedback and you often get critiques and reviews, and so I kind of, I mean, people love it. Then great. People have thoughts about it. Then great. I mean, I look at my work all like over and over again, and I always have thoughts about it. Like, you never can perfect it. What makes me slightly uncomfortable is when people tell me that like my book or my film made them cry, and I just have this moment of panic on my face, and I'm like, uh, thank you. Like, or should I apologize? I should carry packs of Kleenex around with me. I don't know. The first time I went to the screening for Boat People in the Montreal Film Festival, I was in the bathroom, like after the screening, washing my hands, and a lady in the bathroom came up to me and said, "Your film made me cry," and I was like, wet hands, and go, "Thank you." Like, thank you. I don't really. I have to figure out I should talk to a PR person. What's the right response for it, right? I'm glad that it resonates with people, and that sometimes something very emotional to you, um, like leaves an impression on another person. That's what's so powerful about the arts, right? Whether
Mm.
you're writing a book or doing a film, that you have this opportunity to leave an impression. And yeah, I'm like very grateful that I have that opportunity to be given to make an impression.
Yeah. No, you know what? It's always an interesting thing because different things hit people in different ways,
Mhm.
right? So you could have 50 people watching your film,
Mm,
and a different part of that film could make each one of those people cry in a different way.
right.
It's not always just that same part. right? It's different things. It's the inflection. It's the way, someone says something.
Right.
Sometimes it just can hit you. And especially when you've experienced something similar, right? You'd be like, oh man, I know what that's like.
Right.
Right. And so I think that emotional impact, that emotional response to something is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when someone comes up to you and he's like, "Oh man, your film made me cry,"
Right.
firstly, maybe get them to specify in a good way or a bad way.
Oh,
You know
that's
what I mean? Be like, you cried because you enjoyed it, or you cried because you were angry that
oh,
you just got through that, right? Can I just specify that, and
right.
then we'll go to the next phase? You know?
Sad, no, truly. I just assumed people were crying because it was sad, but you're right. There are moments of, you know,
No, 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 no.
frustration.
I am definitely 100% sure when people say your film made them cry, it's in a good way. I'm definitely sure it's in a good way. But it's just, I think there should never be a packed response to something like that,
But
right? There's someone sharing this important, powerful thing with you. So
mm,
it's just like, I mean, just hearing them is enough
right,
most of the time, right? Someone being able to come up and be like, Tao, man, your piece just, man, it impacted me,
right,
right? Sometimes they're not really looking for you to say anything, right?
right,
It's just that they were able to come and share that with you. So
right,
it's just listening, and what I mean, just whatever you're feeling in the moment, just say that. You
right.
know what I mean? Just keep it as real as your documentary itself.
Well, I appreciate that like advice because yeah, a lot of times I just like this panic in me, and I know my publisher was just like, she said, well, next time just say like, I really appreciate that, that, my story, my book, like left an impression on you or something like along that lines. And I was like, okay. But yeah, yeah, no, thank you for the advice.
No, no, it's all good. I mean, now you're working on your new project.
Hmm.
Maybe ask them if they've got a similar story. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
you can add it to your new thing.
Yes, it's true.
All right. So when you complete something like this and because you got the funding from the NFT,
Hmm.
like what is that like showing the end product to them? You know what I mean? How was that?
Well, they were part of it all along. Like they were with us throughout the whole thing. Like it wasn't a part where we went away for long stretches and came back. So there was check-in points all along, which was great. And because I haven't made a film before, so I was also nervous to begin with, and so um, yeah. And then when everybody saw the final, like anything you make, you always there's always like you're like constantly reviewing it, constantly judging it and saying, oh, we could have done this, we could have done that. But there are moments where you need to, if you let an artist go, they can work on a project for 20 years, right? So
Mm,
so there was a cutoff point, and I think at the end everybody agreed that we were at a good spot and everything came together, and it was really, well, I don't know about everybody else, but because it was my first film, it was really lovely to see all these ideas that were floating around come together. Because I never knew how, I couldn't picture the big picture,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm so used to working in book where it's just text and image. And so when it came to sound and music, I did not understand how this all worked, right? I appreciated it in films and even more appreciative of it after the fact, of how all this works. So when it comes all together, it just like, it really does sucker punch you. You're just sitting there going, wow, like, so this is how it works. This is how everybody contribute, and this is how every part just added flavor to the story. And so but you need to ask other members of the team what they thought, like if they were happy with the final product. But for me, it was just I don't know. I always like any creative situation where you start off with this idea, and this idea just takes life and grows, and you're just amazed by the amount of support and belief that everybody has in this idea, that they're willing to like take this journey with you for 4 years, right? So it's just it's a very humbling experience for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, like was the when you started, and not coming from a film background, right? So I'm imagining there were kind of fears and hurdles you thought were going to be there. Like once you finished, were the issues that may have come up the ones that you thought may have come up, or like did it go as expected?
Do you mean in the making of the film, or
Yeah.
you mean like the people's feedback and
Like
that?
just all of it, the making of the film, the reception, like when you envisioned it at the beginning and thinking, okay, I'm gonna make this. Like, did you initially think it'd be 10 minutes? Did you initially did all of those things come to pass, or was it like, yo, this is crazy?
I initially thought it was going to take a year. That was the inexperienced, naive me. I thought it was going to take a year, and I remember telling Cal, I'm like, it's going to take a year. I'm going to write a couple books in between the project, in between making films. And he looked at me, and I remember he started laughing in my face. I'm like, what? Obviously, you worked on films that weren't organized, but I'm gonna run a tight ship. So there. I still think of his laughing face, and I want to punch it. I'm just kidding. No, that was one thing that I didn't expect, how long it would take. But I understand now, looking back, hindsight is a very important thing. Is that like to tell a good story, you need to give it time, right? And so like I'm glad we didn't rush it. I'm glad the producers just kept pushing and expecting more from us, and because otherwise I wouldn't know what I was capable of, or what potential this story had, right? So that was basically my take from that wasn't what I was expecting.
Okay. Cool. No, it's all great experience. So I'm sure that when you make your next film, it's gonna be a lot easier, and it might take less time. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Well, I kind of in an ideal world, you would let creativity, because I also find like in writing, like I can rush to write something, but like if I leave it for a week and come back, something that I thought was brilliant, I'd be like, oh no, I can make this better, right? So in an ideal world, like an artist would have room to breathe and to let things marinate, and to walk away, to come back and think about it. But that's not the case, because we do have a budget and money runs out really fast. And so I don't know, like in my next film, I'm also on a budget, and therefore I don't know like if I could take another 4 years. But you're right, like I do know what to expect now, or I know like not to panic when something comes up, like I know how to handle it. from all the examples I've seen, but from the people I've learned from also in the previous project. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this really was a wonderful project.
Thank
You
you.
know, it just, yeah, it just works so well. You know, just from the metaphor, just the you know, the different mediums you use to tell the story. You know, it feels like it's the perfect length. Just every component comes together to, you know, craft this just wonderful thing. So, hey, just congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you do next. So yeah, when you have a new project, I
Right.
hope you will stop by and we can have another conversation.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can talk about anything. It doesn't need to be about the film.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk to you about
We do
just,
podcasts about books because I could talk
yeah.
about
No, I would love to talk to you about books sometime because, you know, I love books.
right.
You know,
Right.
I spent so many years as a kid in the
Right.
library just consuming books. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, that is just always so fascinating to me.
Well, let me know if you ever want to talk about children's books. And I
Yeah.
don't know, like, you said your parents were like, ugh, you just talk to people, but I think you've done a wonderful job. I felt like I was like, I'm just talking to a friend. I mean, that's an art form in itself, especially after the interview I had earlier. I was just like, not everybody can do it. So, don't let your parents poo poo on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I, let the people know where they can follow you and find out what you're doing.
Oh,
Where to get
okay.
your
Well,
books as well.
yeah, I don't. I have an Instagram account. I just deleted Twitter like 2 days ago. Y'all know why. um, so my Instagram account is at Thao ThaoHlam, and I don't expect a lot because usually I post about my cat or my kid. Very few art content. I was worried people start following me like because they hear I make films and art books, and they're like, "Man, we're gonna get so much content out of her," and all they get is cats.
Oh, but what kind of cat do you have?
I have a rag doll and another one that's like a mixed breed. They're somewhere in my place. Usually they're very. Oh, I see my rag doll. Oh my God. This one.
Oh,
Look at that. Look at
oh
that.
my gosh. Hey.
There you go. His name's Tofu.
Ah, okay.
There you go.
Oh man, how old is Tofu?
Tofu is only 6 months.
6 months.
And he's big.
Yeah, Tofu definitely big.
uh, okay.
Well, no, I mean, it's all fascinating, right? Because it all tells you who you are,
Mm,
right? And especially I feel probably with a kid's book,
mm,
right? If someone's buying a book for their kid to consume, I imagine they'd want some sort of insight into who the author is, right?
mm.
Whose stuff are we going to let our kid, you know, digest? So it's just like if
Right.
they look and be like, "Oh, she's got a great cat," yeah, no shit, and get that vibe of who you are.
Right.
I'm sure that's gonna help them go, "Hey, yeah, I feel we're gonna let our kid read."
Yes. Yes. And that would be really cool if they just bought me my books because I have a cat.
Yeah. Okay, so Instagram is your main
Yes,
window into who Tao is.
that's right.
Awesome. And you can get your books at any good bookstore?
Yeah, any good bookstore, online. If I've Google my name, things will pop up. I do that often. I'm like, what's going on out there? Uh, Google my name. Yeah, no, I'm now. When you Google my name, it says author and illustrator. Before it used to say doctor, so I'm moving up on the ranks because
Nice.
there's another
Okay.
Thao Lam out there who's a doctor. And also a singer. There's a great singer in California that's named Thao Lam, and she's really
Ah, okay. Well, I'll ensure to put the right links on the
yeah,
website, right? So we'll throw up your Instagram. There will be
great.
a link to Tao's book read
Yeah,
page. There's what good book reads, good reads,
good
good.
read.
Yes, that's it. Oh my gosh. Right. Yeah, we'll put those links up there. So make sure, people, that you follow Tao because, as well as an incredible children's book author, she now has a wonderful film that you definitely need to add to your life because it's just going to enrich it. So make sure you go consume both, people, because, man, these kind of stories are the stories that you need to imbue. So, Tao, thank you for being such an incredible creative person and just
Thank
bringing this content into people's lives, man, because it's just incredible.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Kevin. Like it's been a joy, and I can't believe an hour went by.
In an hour.
Yeah, I think
Whoa.
we've been over an hour. I kind of secretly text my kids' school saying I'm late. I'm stuck in an
Oh
interview.
my God. I am so sorry. I did not realize we've been
No,
talking
I
for
was
an
like,
hour.
it's a good conversation. I'm not gonna cut you off. Don't worry about it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Right. You go pick up your kids. I don't want them to think that, they need to migrate somewhere and, follow. They're trying to follow some ants to try and find a way home. Oh my God. Okay.
All right. Thanks,
You
Kevin.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.